Hello and welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. Obviously, many of you have gone down a Sean Combs rabbit hole after seeing the really disturbing footage of him beating the living crap out of his then girlfriend in 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles, the hotel which is now closed. It was impossible for me to watch the video. I cannot watch someone in a vulnerable position being beaten like that. I'm a sensitive person in that way, and even though I work for Fox News, and we cover a lot of this stuff live, it's still, even when they showed the Paul Pelosi video the first day on the outnumbered couch, I winced. I was really sick watching that, and I had the same reaction. I've seen glimpses of it. I've seen enough of it. I've seen descriptions and still pictures. And then, Sean Combs obviously came out and said, yeah, that was me. And then he made a list of excuses, didn't really take responsibility. He just said that he was in a dark place and he had hit rock bottom. No, he had hit his ex-girlfriend repeatedly. And that was very comfortable behavior for someone like that. And someone like that is a garden variety raging domestic abuser. And I think if you look into the stories about their relationship, it's very typical for people who are in domestic abuse situations. They tend to go back. And, a lot of people get mad at women like Cassie and even Nicole Brown Simpson. And they're like, why would you ever go back? And, if you talk to people who have worked in domestic violence or who have been victims of domestic violence, these are very clear, well-tread patterns in human nature that are so incredibly difficult to escape. Once someone enters that cycle as the victim, you would not believe how hard it is to get out, because someone who's capable of physically hurting someone like that is doing as much or more emotional damage. And they are also capable of just incredible manipulation. I had a good friend who was in her late teens dating a drug dealer because he was a sociopath who was very attractive to her and would tell her everything she wanted to hear. And then he would, rough her up. She never really told me the extent of the physical abuse, but I knew that she was in that cycle of abuse. And it wasn't until my brother, who was a police officer, was before he was a cop, he was a domestic violence parole and probation officer, and he worked with domestic abusers. And when he started telling me about this personality type and what they are capable of and how they are capable of manipulating people to come back to them over and over and over again, that's clearly what happened in this relationship. And, she, of course, filed this civil suit as the statute of limitations, the 1 year provision that was allowing people who were victims of sexual assault to come forward in civil suits in New York. That was about to expire. And so she filed her 35-page claim, which had some very, very damning allegations. And, at that point, Diddy still had protective people around him and allies who were saying, she's just in it for the money. She's making stuff up. He's a famous mogul. He's always going to be targeted by people like this. And, now that you see that video, you realize if he is capable of that, if he is capable of hurting the person that he loves, and she was trying to escape that hotel room after, apparently she had been punched before he fell asleep. When he fell asleep, she tried to run out. You can see her putting her shoes on in the hallway. If he's capable of doing that to, his partner, then the stories about him having Tupac killed and, some of the other violence that he's been accused of, they don't seem that far-fetched.
Don't go anywhere. More Kennedy Saves the World right after this.
It was very interesting because his lawyer, Aaron Dyer, in the March 25th raid on his two homes in California and Florida, his lawyer said there's no excuse for the excessive show of force and hostility exhibited by authorities. Well, there's also no excuse for the excessive show of force and hostility against your girlfriend, your fiance, your partner, the person that you are supposed to protect. the person who is supposed to look to you when they're in pain so you can support them and help make it better. You are not supposed to be the person who is causing the pain. And I know lawyers are paid to make all sorts of wonderful excuses. And oftentimes, in these victim suits, they do the same thing. They use exaggeration and flowery, damning language. But in Diddy's case, he's taken responsibility, kind of, for that violence. It certainly wasn't the first time. He was incredibly comfortable doing what he did to her. And I guarantee you it wasn't the last time. And I guarantee you she wasn't the last victim. And, now, of course, I'm going down Reddit rabbit holes about Diddy's feud with Suge Knight and how that was not one sided. Everyone always thought that Suge was the bully, but now we know, at least partially, what Diddy is capable of. And it's awful. I wonder if Jennifer Lopez is going to, she's been just farting out some hits lately, diving into some very deep and personal waters in her nauseating relationship with Ben Affleck, which seems to have run its course. I wonder if she's going to come out and, really talk about her relationship with Diddy, what she knew, what she saw, and what she experienced, and if she herself was a victim of that level of violence. I would not wish that on anyone. And it is no surprise to me, even if you have resources and means and a support system, that people get caught up in those relationships. And sometimes it boils down to love addiction, which Dr. Drew has said, even on this podcast, that is a cult of two people who are mutually obsessed with each other. And no good really comes from love addiction. It's hard to treat. A lot of people don't know that they're in love addicted relationships. If you find that you are in a relationship that is one sided and violent, if it is emotionally manipulative, then find a good therapist who can talk to you and treat you for love addiction if that is the case, because that is a cycle that you want to break, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of time. I think Diddy will probably have more time to work on himself than the flimsy list of excuses. And by the way, he said that he went to rehab after that. Um, he was making hundreds of millions of dollars from Diageo, a spirits company, hawking Ciroc vodka and his tequila that apparently wasn't that good, and he accused them of racism for not promoting more. And there are very credible reports that he was doing pink cocaine, which is like, I believe, Coke and Molly mixed. That should really help your rage. Another thing my brother taught me, that anger management doesn't help or treat domestic abusers. It just teaches them how to be more effective at what they do. Unfortunately, Sean Combs has been very, very effective at this. And it is no surprise that the floodgates opened when Cassie filed her lawsuit. The only question is, we're now 2 months into that investigation that we know about, the Homeland Security investigation that crescendoed in the dual raids. Where is the indictment? What do they have? And you have to wonder if the feds at Homeland Security and the FBI are using this tape that Sean Combs supposedly paid $50,000 for. And it mysteriously just ended up on CNN. And of course, the LADA is like, yeah, there's nothing we can do here. We can't prosecute it. It's outside the statute of limitations because it did take place in 2016. He paid for that tape, and it wasn't like the 50s where it's like, all right, give me the microfilm. See? So yes, we did all see that, and we are very disturbed by that. I don't know if he had anger management at his magical rehab that he went to, but it certainly didn't keep him from some pretty awful acts. And we will see if that particular aspect of a very checkered past is going to inform these federal investigators, and if that will nudge an indictment. And if not, there's so much damage that has already been done to Sean Combs. He has lost so much money. He has lost standing at his companies. He's lost many of his companies. And there's still the curious death of his baby mama that also probably requires maybe a little bit more investigation as well. He has created a prison for himself. And the producer of Surviving R. Kelly said, this is not the end for Sean Combs. This is just the beginning of his problems. And you know who's going to make certain of that? 50 Cent, who has just sold a docuseries on Diddy to Netflix because he wanted the biggest platform with the widest audience so he could really shiv his rival. It seems like Diddy has shivved himself, and shame on him. This has been Kennedy Saves the World. I'm Kennedy.
Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app. Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.